So let's settle this question. Really quickly, what I did for testing this out, I put on the usual parsing gear that I would wear, which is currently meta. I did use Slimecraw One Piece with Kilt, Advancing Yokida, and Perfected Bastis Mania. And these are the results. I'll just give you the TLDR. I was calculating the ability metric. So it's essentially just a quick overview of the stats that I have and then seeing how they differ. So you calculate your ability metric, which isn't equivalent to DPS, but it is proportional. And you compare the ones with the gold and the purple. So the TLDR is, of course, it will depend if you're running Bloodthirsty, which you would expect to be running, that depending on the boss health, this is the difference you get. So this is the output of my testing. So it's ranging from, anywhere from 0.1% capping out at around 2% at, when the boss is at 1% health, because it does scale eventually. The average would be at around 45%, although you do have to take into consideration at 45% boss health, although you do have to take into consideration the fact that that's not always how the fights realistically are gonna go. So yeah, I would say around 1% DPS increase on average is what you might expect if you gold out your jewelry. If that's the only thing you came here for, very happy, but I am going to go into the details if you want to see how I did the calculations exactly. So I wrote a little C++ program. It might look a bit intimidating at first. I do have a few extra things that I was testing previously, but anyway, I will quickly try and go through how I did the calculations. Maybe somebody can spot some errors, but I would certainly hope there's no errors in there. So this was my max Magicka. I just enter these numbers. Spell damage, I calculate starting spell damage, main hand weapon, offhand weapon, scaling a little bit. So this is the scaling factor of the offhand weapon, the amount of spell damage you get from it. So my offhand is 1335 spell damage. This is what you get as a bonus. And the 0.06 or 6% extra is from the dual wield passive that gives you extra spell damage based on your offhand. Then 3 lines of spell damage. One from, I think it's 2 from Perfected Basilisk Mania and 1 from Advancing Yokida. And then the 3 enchants, 174 spell damage. This is the buff you get from the dummy. 430 from Major Courage, and 452 is from your backbar infused Berserker enchant. And then, since I was doing this on a sorcerer, that is all amplified by 43%. So this is where this spell damage mod comes from. So 30% comes from minor and major sorcery debuffs, and 10% from having 5 sorcerer skills slotted, 3% from Fighter's Guild skill. And actually, I forgot one piece of medium armor because of Guild. So this will actually need to be changed slightly. So it should be 45. I highly doubt it's going to really change the values, but yeah. Well, what did I just do? Yeah, anyway, Magicka, you get, this is your base Magicka, and then plus 10% from Warhorn, and plus 4% from the Undaunted passive, which gives you 2% per Magicka, or per type of armor you wear. Penetration scales up to, we're just assuming max penetration 18,200. because that's what you would usually have. Crit chance was at 82% with full advancing Yokita stacks and full crits killed stacks, and one Slime Croppies crit damage capped at 125% extra bonus damage. And then the way you do the damage calculation or the expected damage output is, you get your max Magicka, you get your spell damage, multiply that by 10.5, because spell damage, the way it scales is, you can think of it as it being 10.5 times better than having a max Magicka, right? So, 100 max Magicka is not as good as 100 spell damage. It's more like 1000 max Magicka is equivalent to 100 spell damage, or in around that area. Then this is your crit modifier, your damage modifiers, which are basically your damage done, damage done, yeah, and enemies damage taken increase. So this could be your minor berserk, minor slayer, major berserk, any sort of other damage done modifiers. Then what else do we have this? So these are just the stats that I would print, and now we have the comparison that I did is, so if you have your golden jewelry, it scales up to 350 extra spell damage. Purple scales up to 280 extra spell damage. And if you divide it by 90, it scales linearly. So you can expect around, what is this, 3.8% and 3.1, or 3.8 spell damage and 3.1 spell damage per 1% of health missing from the boss. Approximately, of course, it will be rounded, I believe, down, because it's using an integer in the game code, I think. So these are just minor differences, like rounding up, down. Very likely it's going to be actually just trimmed. I don't know where internally on the game servers this happens, or like at what point in the calculation, but I was trying to get it as close to the in-game values as I could. Yeah, so these are the bonuses, and then you just multiply all of these out to get the ability metric. And yeah, then for so damage value 0 is gold, damage value 1 is purple gear. So the one difference, or like two differences that are happening, are we get 1 or like 4 less spell damage because the gear is purple. So if we're taking advancing Yokida, it has 1 spell damage line. If it's purple, it's going to lose 4. So 129 spell damage in gold, 125 spell damage in purple. And it's going to lose 126 crit chance because of 2 crit lines. And the stacking buff of advancing Yokida as well goes down a little bit. So 126 crit value, I guess, and then you divide that by 219.1 to convert it into actual percentages. But this will give me, and then I just multiply by 100. Now, if we run this code, gives about the same values, right? So these are the ability metrics. Yep, it's pretty much the same. Around, I would say around 1% at the halfway mark. Around 1%, up to 2% scaling. Yep, that's it. Thank you guys for watching.